They said love could conquer anything. But what happens when love turns into betrayal, and betrayal becomes a fight for survival? Tonight, on Tales by Wealth, you'll hear the unbelievable story of a woman whose husband pushed her out of a helicopter, all because of her late father's billion-dollar empire. Left for dead in the cold waters below, she survived. And now, she's back, not just to reclaim her life, but to make those who destroyed it pay the price. This is not just a story about wealth and power. It's about betrayal, survival, and revenge in its purest form. So, grab your seat, get comfortable, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Tales by Wealth, where every story reminds you. Sometimes the storm they try to drown you in becomes the very fire that saves you. Now, let's dive into the story. The wind screamed louder than my own voice. The helicopter cut through the night like a metal beast, blades slicing the air with a roar that drowned my sobs. My husband's hands, those same hands that once held me with tenderness, now gripped the door handle, ready to end my life. "Please, Malik," I shouted, clutching the seatbelt across my chest. My tears streamed into the cold air, flying backward into the darkness. "You don't have to do this." He looked at me with eyes that no longer held love, only greed and fury. "You think I'll let you take what's mine, precious? Your father made me look like a fool. You think I'll live my life beneath his shadow? Never." My heart cracked as I stared at the man I thought I knew. The same man who had sworn to love me until death was now delivering that death himself. The city lights of Lagos glimmered far below us, small and distant, as if mocking my helplessness. I never wanted his money. I screamed over the noise. All I ever wanted was you. He gave a short, cruel laugh. "You think love can build an empire? You're naive, precious. Your father's billions built you, and they'll build me too, even if it means your blood has to pay the price." Before I could answer, he yanked the door open. A violent rush of wind blasted through the cabin, nearly pulling me out. My braids whipped across my face as I gripped the side handle, my fingers burning with strain. "Malik, stop. I'm pregnant." For a moment, he froze. Just a heartbeat of hesitation. His eyes flickered with something human, but only for a second. "Then you'll die carrying my heir," he said coldly. And with that, he pushed me. The world flipped. My scream echoed across the night sky as I tumbled through the air, my body spinning, the helicopter shrinking above me. The freezing wind clawed at my skin as I fell toward the black waves below. I hit the water with a force that ripped the breath from my lungs. Pain exploded in every bone. Then, darkness. When I awoke, I was on a rocky shore, half buried in seaweed, shivering under the pale morning light. My dress was torn, my face bruised, and the sound of crashing waves filled my ears. For a moment, I couldn't remember who I was. Then it came rushing back, the helicopter, Malik's voice, his eyes, the fall. I sat up weakly, clutching my belly. The pain was sharp, cruel, unbearable. Tears blur my vision. I didn't know if the baby inside me had survived. But I knew one thing. I was alive. And if I was alive, then God himself must want me to fight. I looked at the endless horizon. Malik thought I was dead. The world would soon believe it too. But I would rise again, not as his wife, not as his victim, but as the storm he never saw coming. By the time an old fisherman found me at dawn, I was barely breathing. His name was Baba Kunnel. He lifted me into his canoe with the care of a father. "Who did this to you, my daughter?" he asked gently as he rowed toward shore. "My husband," I whispered before collapsing again. When I woke up, I was inside a small mud hut near the water. The air smelled of herbs and burning firewood. A kind woman, his wife, Mama Igioma, sat beside me, grinding leaves into a paste. "You're lucky," she said softly. "The sea spits out only those it chooses to spare." I closed my eyes, whispering, "Then the sea should have finished what it started." Mama Igioma shook her head. "No, you were not meant to die. You were meant to return stronger." Her words echoed in my mind long after she left the room. Return stronger. The phrase became a flame in my chest, burning brighter with every breath. 3 days later, I stood on shaky legs, wearing one of Mama Igioma's wrappers. My hair was matted, my face pale, but my heart was awake, fully awake. Malik had betrayed me, destroyed everything I loved, and walked away smiling. But one day soon, he would regret not making sure I was gone. "Don't go yet," Baba Kunnal pleaded. "The city is full of wolves." I smiled faintly. Then it's time they met one who bites harder. I walked out into the sunlight, barefoot, bruised, but alive. Every step hurt, but I welcomed the pain. It reminded me I was still here, and that my story wasn't over. Somewhere in Lagos, Malik was wearing black, pretending to mourn his wife, pretending to be a good man. He was probably already reaching for my father's empire, twisting lies, staging tears for the cameras. He thought the sea had buried his sin, but the ocean hadn't buried me. It had baptized me. When I finally reached the outskirts of Lagos, I saw the news on a flickering TV outside a kiosk. Billionaire's daughter and wife of oil tycoon dies in helicopter crash. And there he was, Malik, dressed in black agbada, speaking softly to reporters, his voice full of fake grief. "She was the love of my life," he said. "I don't know how I'll live without her." My stomach turned. I wanted to scream at the screen, to tear through it and grab him by the throat. He was already stealing everything my father left behind, properties, businesses, even my name. But I wasn't gone. And when I returned, I wouldn't just take back my life. I'd take his too, piece by piece, until he begged for the mercy he never gave me. As the bus carried me deeper into the city, rain began to fall. My reflection stared back at me in the glass, bruised, unrecognizable, but burning with a new fire. The Precious who once believed in love had died that night in the helicopter. The woman, now looking out that window, had only one mission left: revenge. Lagos smelled different when you came back from the dead. The air was thick with noise and heat, but to me, it felt colder than before, like the city itself had turned its back on me. I sat quietly in the back of the Danfo bus, wearing a cheap scarf over my head, blending into the crowd like a ghost no one could see. Billboards flashed images of Malik everywhere, smiling at charity events, standing beside governors, cutting ribbons at my father's companies. He looked untouchable, but the smile on his face wasn't triumph. It was theft. Every billboard was a reminder of the man who had stolen not only my life, but also my father's empire. I clutched the small black bag Mama Igioma had given me. Inside was all I had: 2,000 naira, a torn family photo, and a single gold bracelet, one my father had given me on my 18th birthday. On the inside, it read, "For my precious jewel, never let anyone dim your shine." My eyes burned. "I won't, Papa," I whispered. "Not anymore." I got off at Ojalegba and walked for hours until I reached Surulere, where my father's lawyer used to live. My scarf hid most of my face, but I still kept my head down. Malik had money and influence. If anyone recognized me, my life wouldn't be worth a second chance. When I finally reached the old compound, I knocked softly. A nervous young man opened the gate. "Yes? Who are you looking for?" "I came to see Barrister Dinladi," I said, keeping my voice low. "Tell him an old friend of Chief Namdi's daughter is here." He frowned but went inside. Moments later, the lawyer himself appeared, older and thinner than I remembered. His eyes widened when he saw me. "Jesus Christ. Precious?" he whispered. "You're supposed to be dead." I finished for him. "Yes, and that's exactly how I wanted to stay." He swallowed hard, then ushered me inside quickly, closing the door behind us. "If Malik ever finds out you're alive, he'll finish what he started." I sat down, my hands trembling slightly. "That's why I need your help. I need to know everything that happened after I disappeared." He nodded slowly, then opened his briefcase, pulling out several documents. "Your father's estate has been transferred to Malik. He presented a fake death certificate and forged your signature as next of kin. He's now the controlling shareholder of all your father's companies." I clenched my fists. "So it's true. He killed me for the money." "That's not all," Dinladi continued quietly. "Your father's death wasn't natural either. The autopsy was rushed. 2 days before he died, he called me in secret. He said someone was tampering with his medications." My breath caught. "What are you saying?" He met my eyes. "I believe Malik poisoned him." The room fell silent. The sound of distant traffic faded. For the first time, I felt true rage, not the kind that made you cry, but the kind that made your blood boil until you could taste it. Malik killed my father and tried to kill me, I whispered. All for his empire. Dunladi nodded gravely. He's dangerous, precious. But there's one thing you should know. Your father left a sealed envelope before he died. He told me to give it to you if anything ever happened to him. It contained something powerful. He reached into a drawer and handed me a brown envelope. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter and a small silver flash drive. The letter read, "My dear Precious, if you're reading this, it means the people I feared most have succeeded. This drive holds proof of corruption, bribes, and secret accounts connected to Malik and others in government. Guard it with your life. It's your shield and your sword. Your father." Tears rolled down my cheeks. My father had seen it coming and still tried to protect me. Can this expose Malik? I asked. Dunladi nodded. If released, it could destroy him. But you have to be careful. He's not alone in this. Powerful people stand with him. I wiped my face, determination hardening in my chest. Then I'll face them all, one by one. That night, I found a cheap room in Mushin. It smelled of kerosene and sweat, but it was safe. I locked the door and lay on the thin mattress, staring at the ceiling fan turning slowly above me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Malik's face, the helicopter, the fall, the water. I pressed a hand to my belly again. The pain there had dulled, but the emptiness remained. I didn't need a test to know. The baby was gone. I turned my face to the wall and let the tears come. Silent, hot, endless tears. I cried for my father, my child, and the woman I used to be. But somewhere between the sobs, something inside me broke, and something else was born. A new Precious. Not soft, not trusting. A woman carved by betrayal and shaped by pain. 2 days later, I cut my hair short, dyed it dark brown, and started going by the name Adiz. It felt strange at first, but every time I said it aloud, I felt less like the broken wife Malik tried to erase, and more like the hunter he would soon regret making. My first mission was to get close enough to him again, to see what he was hiding, to find his weakness. But that meant blending into his world without being recognized. So I got a job at one of my father's hotels, now under Malik's ownership. The hotel where it had all begun. I started as a cleaner, invisible to the powerful men in suits who walked past every day. No one looked twice at the girl in uniform mopping the marble floors. And that was exactly how I wanted it. From that position, I watched, listened, learned, and slowly, piece by piece, I began to uncover the web Malik had spun around my father's empire. The bribes, the hidden bank accounts, the mistress, and the men who helped him cover up his crimes. Every night, I wrote notes and stored copies on the flash drive. My revenge wasn't going to be loud. It was going to be precise. The kind that left scars no one could see until it was too late. One evening, as I mopped the corridor outside the executive suite, the door opened, and there he was. Malik, my husband, my betrayer. He walked out, laughing with 2 business partners, his cologne filling the hallway like poison. I froze, keeping my head low, heart thundering in my chest. He brushed past me without a glance. For the first time since that night, I stood inches away from the man who threw me from a helicopter. My fingers tightened around the mop handle. My knees trembled, but I didn't move. Not yet, because revenge isn't taken in a rush. It's served when the world least expects it. As his voice faded down the hallway, I whispered to myself, "You'll never see me coming." Working as a cleaner in my father's hotel felt like walking through the ashes of my past. Every corner, every chandelier, every hallway whispered reminders of what once was mine. I used to walk these floors in designer heels. Now I carried a mop and bucket. But this was the perfect disguise. No one ever looks twice at the help. Every day I scrubbed floors, emptied trash cans, and dusted offices. And every day I collected pieces of information, whispers of corruption, secret meetings, names of Malik's partners. Revenge isn't something you rush. It's something you build, layer by layer, until it can no longer be undone. One afternoon, I overheard 2 security officers gossiping near the elevator. Boss, go meet that woman again today, one said, laughing. Which woman? The same one way day, follow and go Abuja. Fine woman, oh, but while a day, follow that kind beauty. My heart clenched. Malik had a mistress. Of course he did. The betrayal no longer surprised me, but the anger still burned hot. I followed quietly as they spoke, pretending to mop. She day come hotel tonight, the man said. Suite 705. Boss no one make madam's ghost catch am for dream. Suite 705. I whispered the number to myself until it was etched into my memory. That night, when most staff had gone home, I slipped into the corridor with a tray of towels. I moved quietly, my heart pounding, until I stood outside the door. I heard laughter, Malik's laughter. Deep, cruel, and far too familiar. I pressed my ear to the wall. Soon, everything will be settled, he was saying. Precious's accounts are already in my control. The Americans accepted the offer. The properties in Atlanta, Abuja, and Cape Town, all mine. A woman's voice answered softly. And what about the rumors? That she didn't die in that crash. Malik chuckled. Superstition. Even if she crawled out of the grave, who would believe her? The world buried her with me, crying on live TV. My hand shook. I had to cover my mouth to stop a sob from escaping. He killed me once, but this time when I rose, I would bury him. The next morning, I copied footage from the hotel CCTV using a small flash drive I'd bought from street vendor. I found what I needed, Malik entering Suite 705 with the woman. Perfect evidence of his secret affair. But that wasn't enough. I needed to destroy him in a way that would hurt his pride, his reputation, and his empire, all at once. That week, I started small. I erased bookings for high-profile clients, deleted meeting reminders, and replaced Malik's financial presentation with an empty folder. Within days, chaos broke out among his managers. Who's sabotaging our system? One shouted. Malik slammed his fist on the table. Find them before I do. I watched from the doorway, pretending to sweep. Every second of his frustration felt like medicine to my soul. Late one evening, I met secretly again with Barrister Dunladi. He looked tired, but his eyes held quiet admiration. You've changed, he said. I had to, I replied. The woman I was died that night. He nodded. Be careful. Malik has been making calls. He suspects someone inside the company is working against him. I'm not afraid, I said softly. He should be. I handed him a small envelope filled with copied documents, bank transfers, property deeds, and emails linking Malik to the death of my father. Dunladi opened it, his mouth tightening. This could ruin him. I met his gaze. That's the plan. A week later, while cleaning the boardroom, I found something I wasn't supposed to see. On the large table lay a brown folder labeled Confidential Government Project. Curiosity pulled me closer. Inside were letters, contracts, and payment receipts. Millions wired to government officials. Malik was bribing his way into new oil blocks. If I leaked this, his entire empire would collapse. As I tucked the file back carefully, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned and froze. It was Malik. He stood there, his eyes narrowing, studying me. Who are you? He asked. You're new here. I bowed my head. Cleaner, sir. At ease, sir. I was just finishing up. His gaze lingered on me for a long, unbearable moment. Then he turned away. Be careful where you wander, Adiz. Curiosity can be dangerous. Yes, sir, I said softly, forcing myself not to shake. When he left, I sank into a chair, my breath shallow. He hadn't recognized me. Not yet, but I could feel it. His instinct was stirring. The hunter was beginning to sense his prey was still alive. That night, thunder rolled over Lagos, and rain poured against the hotel windows. I sat in my small room behind the laundry section, staring at the flash drive that contained the proof of his crimes. I knew a mistake could end me, but I also knew I was closer than ever to exposing him. I whispered into the storm, Father, if you can hear me, guide me. Help me bring him down. A bolt of lightning flashed outside, lighting the room for a split second, and in that light, I saw my reflection in the mirror. Short hair, cold eyes, determined heart. The old Precious was gone. This was the woman Malik created with his own betrayal. As the night deepened, I stared at the rain-streaked window and wondered What would you have done if someone you love tried to end your life for money? Would you forgive, or would you fight back like I'm about to? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and tell me where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe to Tales by Wealth for more powerful African stories like this one. Rain pounded the hotel rooftop as night fell over Lagos. I stood alone in the service corridor, clutching the mop handle so tightly my knuckles turned white. My disguise had worked for weeks, but something in Malik's eyes during our last encounter told me he was beginning to suspect. I had always known this moment would come. Survival meant being ready before the storm hit. The next morning, the hotel was buzzing with tension. Security was doubled. Managers whispered in corners. Malik had ordered a full internal audit after discovering that several transactions and documents had mysteriously gone missing. He was hunting for a traitor, without realizing she was right under his nose. I moved through the lobby, pretending to sweep, my uniform slightly oversized, cap pulled low. But I could feel the weight of his presence, even when he wasn't around. Malik had a way of infecting the air with fear. Still, I couldn't stop now. I was close, so close, to tearing his empire apart. Later that afternoon, I went into the executive records room, pretending to dust. The door clicked shut behind me, and I exhaled deeply. I reached under my blouse and pulled out my father's flash drive, plugging it into the computer. One by one, I uploaded everything: emails, proof of bribes, secret offshore accounts. When I was done, I copied the entire file structure into an encrypted cloud folder. Just as I was about to unplug it, the door opened. I froze. "Who's there?" came a familiar voice. Malik. He walked in slowly, his sharp eyes scanning the room. "The cleaners don't usually work here," he said. "What are you doing?" My mind raced. I turned, keeping my head slightly bowed. "Sorry, sir. I was told to clean this section today. Didn't know it was restricted." He stepped closer. I could smell the faint cologne that had once been my favorite scent. The same scent that now made my stomach turn. His gaze lingered on me for a long, uncomfortable moment. Then his hand moved slowly to lift my chin. I stopped breathing. His fingers touched my jaw. For one terrifying second, our eyes met. Recognition flickered, then faded. He let go, smiling coldly. "You look familiar. Have we met before?" I forced a nervous laugh. "No, sir. I only started last month." He studied me one last time, then shrugged. "If I find you where you shouldn't be again, Adiz, you won't live to regret it." And with that, he walked out. The moment the door closed, my knees gave way. I fell to the floor, shaking. The terror of being seconds away from exposure cut through me. But beneath that fear, a spark of satisfaction burned. He didn't recognize me. Not yet. 2 days later, chaos struck the hotel again. News had broken that the Lagos government was investigating one of Malik's companies for money laundering. The evidence had been leaked anonymously. I watched him from a distance as he raged through the lobby, shouting at his managers. "Who leaked those documents? Who?" I turned away quickly, pretending to polish a vase so he wouldn't see the small smile creeping onto my lips. That was only the beginning. But my small victories came at a cost. That night, as I walked back to my tiny room behind the laundry wing, I noticed the door slightly open. My heart skipped. Inside, everything was torn apart. My mattress slit open, my locker emptied, my few clothes scattered across the floor. Someone had searched my room. I dropped my cleaning gloves and rushed inside, scanning everything. My father's flash drive gone. My blood ran cold. Only one person had enough power to order a search: Malik. He knew something. I sank to my knees, gripping my hair. My only weapon, my proof, was in his hands now. For the first time since I survived the fall, panic clawed at me. But panic couldn't save me. Only strategy could. If he knew I was alive, I was dead. If he didn't, I had to make sure it stayed that way. The next morning, Malik called an emergency staff meeting. I stood among the others, head down. He paced in front of us like a lion circling its prey. "There is a thief among us," he said slowly. "Someone is leaking private information to my enemies. Until I find who it is, no one leaves this building without my permission." My throat tightened. I could feel his gaze sweep across the crowd and stop on me. He walked toward me, his voice calm but dangerous. "You. Adiz, isn't it?" I nodded, forcing my hands not to shake. "Yes, sir." He smiled faintly. "You seem nervous." I swallowed. "No, sir. Just tired. Long shifts." He chuckled darkly. "Good. Stay tired. A busy cleaner has no time for secrets." He walked away. The tension in my chest finally broke. My breath came in short gasps. He was testing me, and I couldn't afford to fail again. That evening, I met Barrister and Lottie at a small restaurant in Yaba. His expression was grave. "Malik knows someone inside has been leaking data," he said. "He's working with the police now. Precious, you have to disappear before it's too late." "I can't," I said firmly. "If I run now, he wins. He killed my father, my child, and tried to kill me. I'll die before I let him win again." Then Lottie sighed. "Then you need help. Someone on the inside who isn't loyal to him." His words lingered. I thought of the hotel staff, especially Chica, the young receptionist who often smiled kindly at me. Maybe, just maybe, she could be trusted. That night, I approached Chica in the break room. "Chica, I need to ask you something," I whispered. "Do you trust Mr. Malik?" Her face darkened. "Trust him? That man's wicked. He fired my sister for nothing." I exhaled. "Then I need your help." She looked at me curiously. "Help you with what?" I leaned closer. "To bring him down." Her eyes widened, but she didn't pull away. Instead, she whispered, "Tell me what to do." The next phase of my revenge had begun. Malik thought I was a nameless cleaner hiding behind a mop and a lie. But I was about to remind him that the woman he threw out of that helicopter hadn't drowned. She had risen, and this time, she was bringing fire with her. The night Lagos turned silent for me. I knew something had shifted. The air felt heavier, like the city itself was holding its breath, waiting for the next blow. Malik had tightened security, doubled his guards, and ordered random staff interrogations. He was closing in, but he didn't know I wasn't working alone anymore. Chica and I met secretly in the laundry room every night after our shifts. She was young, barely 22, but fierce and loyal. Her sister's unjust firing had made her despise Malik just as much as I did. I told her everything, almost everything. Not about the helicopter or my real name, but enough to make her understand. "He killed people," I whispered, "and he'll keep doing it if someone doesn't stop him." She clenched her fists. "Then we stop him, whatever it takes." From that night, Chica became my eyes and ears. She worked at the front desk, which meant she saw every name that checked in, every VIP list, every secret meeting Malik tried to hide. And one evening, she brought me news that shook me to my core. "Malik's meeting someone tomorrow night," she said breathlessly, slipping into the laundry room. "A man from Abuja. They say it's about a new deal, something something his father-in-law once owned." My heart froze. "My father's oil block in Baelsa," I murmured. "He's selling it off." Chica nodded. "And guess where the meeting will happen? In this hotel. Suite 909. Midnight." That was it. The opportunity one had been waiting for. If I could record that meeting, get solid proof of a legal sale and bribery, I could expose him completely. But that also meant danger. If I got caught, Malik wouldn't hesitate this time. The next night, the hotel buzzed with tension. VIP cars lined the driveway. Men in dark suits entered quietly, carrying briefcases. I wore my uniform as usual, head bowed, pretending to push a cart of towels. But hidden under those towels was a small recording device and a phone camera I had borrowed from Chica. I moved carefully down the hallway until I reached Suite 909. The door was slightly open. Voices drifted out. "I told you, once we close this deal, the remaining assets will be transferred," Malik was saying. "And the money?" the other man asked. "In dollars. Offshore. No trace." I slipped the phone into a vent above the door and pressed record. Then I froze. The conversation changed. "By the way," the Abuja man said, "what of your late wife's estate? You seem to be enjoying it quite well." Malik laughed, a low, bitter laugh that sent chills through my body. "That woman was never meant to live past her father. I made sure of that. But death has a way of rewarding those who deserve it." The men laughed together. My throat tightened. The sound of it, his casual cruelty, felt like knives carving old wounds open. And then he said it. "If I ever see her ghost, I'll kill her twice." I didn't realize I was crying until a tear hit the back of my hand. I turned away, quietly, but my foot caught the edge of my cart. The metal tray clattered. Inside the room, silence. Then, footsteps. "Who's there?" Malik's voice thundered. I ran. Down the hallway, through the service door, my slippers slapping against the tile floor. I heard shouts behind me, guards rushing out, boots echoing. I turned a corner, pushed open a fire door, and burst into the rainy night behind the hotel. My chest burned as I ran through the alley, heart hammering like a drum. I didn't stop until I reached the back gate. Chica was waiting there, wide-eyed. "What happened?" she gasped. "They know." I panted. He almost caught me. We ran together into the night, disappearing into the crowd. The next morning, the news spread across the hotel like wildfire. Malik was furious. He had fired 5 staff members already, claiming someone tried to steal confidential documents. He even offered a reward for any information about the spy. I kept my head down, acting terrified, blending in with the others. But deep down, I knew something worse was coming. When I returned to my room that evening, an envelope lay on my bed. No name, no handwriting, just one word on the front: ghost. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a single photograph, me, standing outside Suite 909 the night before. And on the back of the photo were 3 words written in red ink. "I know you." I sank onto the bed, heart racing. He knew, or at least he suspected. Every instinct told me to run, but running meant defeat, and I wasn't built to lose anymore. I picked up the photo again and stared at it under the dim light. "So, you want to play?" I whispered. "Then let's play." I took out the recording I'd managed to save before escaping the suite. Malik's voice was clear as day, confessing to my father's death and the corruption. It wasn't enough yet, but it was a start. I sent a copy to Beresford and Lottie through a secure email. His reply came moments later. "This is good, precious. But be careful. Someone close to Malik is helping him find you. Trust no one." My mind raced. Someone close to him? Could it be Chica? No, she couldn't. She'd risked everything to help me. She was my only ally. But deep down, a small voice whispered, "Even the kindest faces can hide betrayal." 2 days later, Malik called another staff meeting. His tone was softer this time, his smile calm, but his eyes were sharp and searching. "We've discovered who's been leaking our information," he announced. Everyone went silent. He turned slowly and pointed at Chica. Gasps filled the room. She stepped back, stammering, "Sir, Enough," he roared. "I have proof. You've been communicating with my enemies." Guards grabbed her before she could speak. I wanted to scream, to tell them she was innocent, but I couldn't. If I exposed myself now, it would all be over. As they dragged her away, our eyes met. Hers were wide with terror and trust. She didn't beg me for help. She just gave the slightest nod, as if saying, "Keep fighting." Tears blurred my vision as I watched them take her. That night, I sat in the laundry room alone, trembling with guilt. Malik had taken my father, my child, and now the only friend I had left. But this time, I swore to myself, it would end differently. I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to hide. I was going to finish this. And when I was done, the world would know the truth. The world would know that Precious, the woman Malik threw from a helicopter, was still alive. And this time, I was coming for his throne. The night Chica was taken felt like the world had torn a piece out of my chest. I lay awake on the thin mattress behind the laundry wing, staring at the mosquito net above me. Every shadow looked like a guard. Every sound made my heart jump. Chica's face kept coming back to me, those eyes full of trust as they dragged her away. I had promised her help. I could not break that promise. At dawn, I went straight to Beresford and Lottie. He met me under a mango tree behind a small office, his face drawn and tired. "They've moved her to the central lockup," he said quietly. "They accuse her of conspiring with foreign agents. They say she tried to sell company secrets." My blood ran cold. "It's a lie." He touched my arm. "Listen, if we go through the normal channels, Malik will watch every move. He has men in the police. We need to be clever. We need to act like we have nothing to lose, because we don't." I thought of Baba Kunnel and the fishing village. I thought of the muddy roads and the old men who knew how to move without being noticed. I thought of the fishermen's small boats that could slip beneath bridges and past police launches. It was dangerous, It was crazy, but it was the only way. Take me to the river, I told Dunladi. Take me to Baba Cunnel. We'll fetch her out tonight. He hesitated, then nodded. Bring proof you can scare them with. Show me something they can't ignore. I left him with a copy of the recording from Suite 909. I watched his fingers tremble as he listened. He looked up at me and said, "We'll use this, but we must be careful." That night, the sky was heavy with rain. The river smelled like wet sand and old fish. Baba Cunnel pushed the canoe from the shore, the engine a low hum in the dark. I wrapped my head with a scarf and held my breath. The city lights were a distant glow. My life felt like it hung between the river and the sky. We reached the police lockup at the back, where the light was dim. A single guard sat hunched over a small radio. Baba Cunnel eased the canoe into the reeds. Dunladi slipped from the shadows with a little bag in his hand. He called it the word bag. It held names, bribes, and threats they could not refuse without being exposed. We walked quietly behind the building. The lockup smelled of sweat and metal. Chica's voice came to us when Dunladi whispered her name to a small window. She was in the furthest cell. When she saw us, her face crumpled. "Precious," she cried. Her voice was thin. I touched her hand through the bars. "I'm here." Her eyes went to Dunladi. "Please, tell them I didn't," she stammered. "I only helped her. I used a clerk's account to send messages. I thought I was protecting you." "You did exactly what you were brave enough to do," I said. "And I will get you out." Dunladi went to speak with the officer. His voice was soft, his Yoruba smooth. He placed a flash drive on the counter and said, "This contains evidence on a corruption case. If you keep this detained girl for us, we will show the statements to an inspector in Abuja. You will be rewarded for cooperation." He pressed his phone with the police inspector's name into the officer's hand. The man's eyes flicked greedily. But the officer was hesitant. He did not want to disobey his boss. He looked to the other guard for approval. The man's face was blank. Finally, the officer shrugged. "Leave her here for one more hour," he said. "If you don't come back, she stays." We left angry and weak. We cannot wait. An hour felt like 1,000 years. That hour gave me time to think. It gave me time to plan. It gave me the same old aching that had become my companion. Anger, steady and dull as a stone. When we returned, Chica had been moved. The officer said she'd been taken to another building for further questioning. Dunladi's face showed the first cracks of defeat. "They moved her to the central station," he said. "We were set up." Baba Cunnel's hand grabbed my arm. "They are clever," he said, "but not clever enough. There are always cracks." We split up. Dunladi went to the inspector's office to meet a contact he trusted. Baba Cunnel and I walked toward the bridge that crossed the river. We watched the police cars move like predators across the lit road. Then we saw them, the convoy carrying prisoners toward the bus that would take them to the other station. It moved slow, but mercy was not its purpose. That's when we moved. Baba Cunnel and a fisherman named Okoro took the canoe. I carried a forged police vest Dunladi had procured and a small key. We followed the convoy from a distance until a narrow car park with a service gate. Okoro's hand on the canoe was steady. He pushed us behind a pillar while the police bus stopped to set down one prisoner for paperwork. The guard walked away for a smoke. It was a hole we could slip into. We timed it to the breath. Okoro and Baba Cunnel were fast and sure. We cut the lock to a secondary holding cell with a small tool Dunladi had in his pocket, a tool for locksmiths. The cell door opened with a soft creak. Chica looked at me and smiled, exhausted but alive. "Go," I hissed. "Run to the river." She ran like a child who had been given a second chance. We all dove into the canoe, heartbeats pounding like drums in my chest. The river closed over the wake behind us. The night swallowed the sound. We headed to a small shack where Mama Igioma had hidden a blanket. Chica's hands shook so badly she could not light a lamp. Baba Cunnel wrapped her with an old fishing coat and fed her hot soup. "Eat," he said. "You need strength." She calmed a little and whispered, "Precious, I am sorry. I thought I could protect you without being noticed." "I'm sorry. You are not to blame," I said. My voice was a soft steel. "You were brave. Brave people break rules." Her eyes shone with shame. I took her hand. "We will make it right." The next morning, Dunladi came with a plan. "They will look for you in the obvious places," he said. Malik is clever, but he loves his triumph, to be honest. He thinks you are dead. He won't expect you to hit him where he lives. We needed to reveal a mole inside the hotel, someone who had access to staff files, surveillance, and private messages. Dinladi said the hotel's security chief, Tund, had too many privileges. He could arrange staff searches, move prisoners, and control cameras. He was close to Malik, too close. You think Tund is the mole? I asked. Dinladi nodded. He was spotted meeting with one of Malik's men the day before the arrests. He has changed his schedule. He has money moving into his account. People like him take bribes. We needed proof. Tund's desk was a fortress. He kept a personal key ring and a small safe in his office. It was here we must find the truth. But getting into his office meant sneaking past guards and cameras. It meant taking a risk where the price could be life. That night, Chica told me something that made my blood twist. When they dragged me away, she said quietly, Tund looked at me like he knew me, like I was someone he once saw before. I thought it was my imagination. I looked at her until the room felt small. Maybe he does know you, I said. Maybe he recognizes you because he was the one who washed you at the dock that day. Chica shook her head. No, she swallowed. I saw him at the registry once. He visited my sister. He's not close to our family. But his eyes, precious, his eyes remembered something like a face. We moved at midnight. Chica dressed as a cleaner so she would not be stopped if she met a guard. Dinladi had a fake maintenance pass with a name that was not mine. Baba Kunnel and Okoro were at the ready in the alley with the canoe if we needed to run. Tund's office was at the back of the security wing. I waited by the door while Chica slipped inside with her mop cart as diversion. The cameras panned the corridor slowly. My heart thudded against my ribs. I thought of Malik's cold voice telling me I would die. I thought of the fall. I thought of the baby that was gone. I used those pictures like fuel. Chica returned with a small key she said she found on a guard's belt. She passed it to me under the shadow of a pillar. I fitted into the lock and turned. The safe opened with a soft sigh. Inside were folders labeled with hotel names, bank transfers, and a thick envelope marked payments, names and amounts, dates and wire numbers. Among them was a sheet with Tund's name and a foreign account. There were also photographs, Malik shaking hands with men I did not know, and beside them, a small Polaroid of a newborn baby with a tiny bracelet. On the bracelet, someone had written in shaky ink, Bamadil, 2024. My fingers went numb. My breath stopped. The Polaroid showed a small baby wrapped in a hospital blanket. Someone had taken a picture and kept it like proof. I pulled the paper closer. There were notes scribbled near it. A hospital name, St. Agnes Maternity, and a date. The date was 3 months after the crash. My mind reeled. I thought of the night I fell. The baby had been gone. I had felt an empty place inside. But this paper said otherwise. Someone had taken this child and recorded it. Someone had kept proof. I pressed my hand flat to the photo, the paper trembling. My eyes burned. I felt the world tilt. Precious, Chica whispered. She had seen me freeze. What is it? I felt anger like a living thing. It tasted metallic in my mouth. I looked at the list of payments. They were large sums, routed through a midwife's account, marked as care expenses. Someone had paid to keep a child safe or to hide the truth. Tund's safe had what we needed. We copied everything. We took photos of the documents on my phone when we thought no one was watching. As we left, the radio on the desk crackled. A voice said, "Move to the north gate." 2 suspicious figures reported. "Be ready." My skin prickled. Someone had tipped off security. We ran. The alarms fired like birds startled in the dark. We sprinted through the halls, dodging lights and guards. My lungs burned. Chica's hand found mine as we darted into a service corridor. We pushed through a delivery door and spilled into the alley where Baba Kunnel waited with the canoe. We slid into the river like ghosts. The city receded, and the silence of water swallowed our running feet. We did not stop until the dawn came gray and thin across the river. At sunrise, Dinladi spread the new evidence on a small table. He checked each line, his face a map of worry and determination. "This changes everything," he said. "If St. Agnes is real, and if the baby is there, we can prove that Malik had more than greed. He had a plan that involved people close to my late client. We can bring charges for kidnapping, bribery, and murder. The room smelled of old paper and tea. I barely heard his words. My world had narrowed to the Polaroid and its tiny bracelet. I held the copy of the photo like a talisman. My hands were steady now. The tremor had been taken by a new force. Focus. Who took the child? I asked quietly. Who brought it to St. Agnes? Dunladi looked at me with a softness that had not been there before. We don't know yet, but we will find out. We will ask questions at the hospital, and we will follow the bank trail. The payments did not go to a stranger. They went through people who know how to hide things. I closed my eyes and saw my belly, the place where my child had been. I saw the salt water and the weight of the ocean. I had mourned that child's death. I had let myself feel the empty place and build anger from it. Now a new fire burned. Survival had become more than an ache. Revenge had become a mission with a name. We would find the child. We would bring Chica back to safety. We would make Malik pay. But the thought that twisted my stomach like a knife was this. Someone had saved my baby. Someone had paid to hide it. Someone had papered proof and kept it in a safe connected to Malik's own man. That meant the enemy had hands that reached into places I could not imagine. And in the brightest, most terrible corner of my mind, a single question rose. If my baby had been taken and kept alive, whose side was that person truly on? The answer would change everything. I felt like a woman walking along a thin, high rope. One wrong move, and everything would snap. The Polaroid burned in my pocket like a coal. It had led us to St. Agnes Maternity, and St. Agnes had led us to a truth I had not dared imagine. Now, we were following that truth across borders. Dunladi and I arrived at St. Agnes before the morning shift. The hospital smelled of disinfectant and boiled water. Nurses moved quickly, faces practiced and hard. I kept my head down, wrapped in a plain wrapper, so no one would look twice. The photo of the tiny bracelet sat folded in my hand. Inside, Dunladi spoke with a doctor I had never seen before. He used a name I did not know, a patient's name from the old notes. He spoke in careful Yoruba and English, slipping the hush of money under his words. The doctor's mouth tightened. He asked questions about dates, about admissions. He folded the file with slow fingers, then handed it back. We only have a redacted file, he said quietly. Patient confidentiality. Dunladi nodded, then tapped his phone. There are other ways. He left the doctor with a handshake and a folded envelope. I watched the doctor's eyes change. Interest, then fear, then resignation. He tucked the envelope into his pocket like a secret. We waited in a small visitor's room. Time moved like water through a sieve. When the doctor returned, his face was stiffer. We found a record, he whispered, but it is sealed. The child was not listed under the mother's name. The birth register shows a transfer. A private adoption was arranged. The payments came through an account tied to a local agent. After that, the trail goes cold here. My heart jumped in my throat. Cold where? He rubbed his temple. Records show a flight, an outbound transfer from Lagos to Accra, then to London, and finally to Atlanta. The passport was new, name changed, adopted legally in the United States a month after the transfer. My skin crawled. Atlanta? The doctor nodded. The paperwork names an agency in Atlanta as the receiving party. The hospital paperwork was signed by a woman who gave a Lagos address. It looks legitimate on paper. But the payments and the speed of it, someone wanted the child gone fast. It felt as if the room had turned upside down. All the aching I'd held for months, the salt water, the loss, the empty space in my belly suddenly had a face. Someone had decided my baby should not belong to me. Someone had decided he belonged in another country, under another name. Dunladi closed his eyes and let out a long breath. We have to follow the money. If the transfer stopped in Atlanta, we find the agency there. We find a family that received the child. We find my client's child. My voice sounded small when I spoke. Who would take a child and cross oceans to hide it? He looked at me with calm that hid worry. Men who want power do strange things. They think children are papers to be signed. They think heirs can be bought. But we'll prove them wrong. We spent the week tracing the banking trail. It took calls, backroom meetings, and a man in an Accra office who liked whiskey too much and had a soft spot for Barrister Dunladi. The payments had been routed through shell accounts, small transfers that added up to a very large sum. Every bank we asked about gave polite refusals, then silences. But we kept pressing. We followed the breadcrumbs people didn't want us to find. When the paper trail finally led to Atlanta, it felt unreal. Atlanta, a city I'd only seen in photographs and travel shows, suddenly housed a child who had once lived inside me. The thought made me dizzy. How could the thing inside me be living under another sky, sleeping in another woman's arms, while I walked the streets of Lagos like a ghost? Dunladi pulled a map and pointed. There's an address, a suburb, a house with privacy walls. The receiving agency was a front, registered under a nonprofit. The funds came from an account controlled by one of Malik's partners overseas. The paper trembled in my hands. I wanted to tear it up and scream, "Give him back." But the pages were not what would get my child home. Action would. We needed proof, documented, legal proof, to show that the adoption was fraudulent, that the child had been taken under duress, that the money trail led back to Malik and his partners. Then we could involve international agencies, lawyers in the United States, and the kind of people who move fast when embarrassment or jail is the cost. It was dangerous work. Every lead we pushed opened a new door of questions. Someone was always 2 steps ahead. People warned us, friends of Dunladi, men with weary faces, saying Malik's reach was long, and he had allies in the diaspora who could make problems disappear. I did not flinch. I had already seen the darkness of his hunger. I knew his heart. He had no conscience left. While we built the legal net, I needed to know one more thing. Who had the Polaroid in Tun's safe? Who had kept a picture of a newborn next to records of payments? The Polaroid had been a breadcrumb for us. It had led us straight to St. Agnes. That meant whoever had it wanted it found, or wanted to be found. We put a plan together. Dunladi would push the legal side forward, contacting a lawyer in Atlanta who specialized in trafficking and fraudulent adoptions. I would push the personal side, finding the woman who had signed the hospital form, the midwife who had handled the case, anyone who had the courage to tell the story. I returned to the hotel at night with more purpose than fear. The staff greeted me with the same tired nods, unaware that the cleaner was now a storm. I moved through the corridors like a shadow. I visited old spots and whispered to those who would listen. Some people were helpful. Some were too scared to look up. I learned how much fear can buy silence. One afternoon, while folding towels near the staff entrance, the security chief Tund walked past. His face was pale and drawn lately. Stress had made him thin. He glanced at me in a way that made the blood in my face run cold, recognition flitting and gone like a bird. I kept my head down. I had learned that direct confrontations were dangerous. Instead, I watched. 2 nights later, Chica, safe now, hidden, brought me a scrap of paper. "A name," she said. "A housekeeper in Atlanta." She told someone she heard Malik was paying big money to get a special child moved overseas. It was a small lead, but it was something. We fed it to Dunladi, who forwarded it to the lawyer in Atlanta. The reply came quicker than any of us expected. The name matched a case file, an adoption that had been flagged but closed after payment and documentation went through. They closed the case because of paper trail errors, the lawyer wrote. But we have a contact who might help. There is a woman in Atlanta, an employee of the receiving family, who once tried to file a complaint. She vanished from public record afterwards. A chill crawled over me. Someone else had tried and then disappeared. Had they been bought? Threatened? Dead? Then came the call that turned everything upside down. A small man with a thick voice called Barrister Dunladi and asked for a meeting. He refused to say more on the phone. Dunladi's face went white when he hung up. "He says he has something," he whispered. "He says he is ready to tell the truth. But he is here in Lagos." A meeting was set for midnight under the cover of the old bridge. I knew the spot, where Baba Kunnel had first found me all those months ago. The river would swallow our sounds. The men would not likely be seen. I wrapped my scarf tight under the moon and met Dunladi at the bridge. A single man waited, slim, in a plain cap, his eyes tired. He introduced himself in a hushed voice as Emeka, a courier who had once moved documents from Malik's partners. He said he wanted to clear his conscience. He handed Dinladi an envelope. Inside were bank printouts, a small list of names, and my hands began to shake, the name of the woman who had signed the St. Agnes form. And beside that name was another, Layla Bamadil. My breath stopped. Layla, a name I had not heard aloud since childhood. My heart thudded like a drum. Layla was Malik's sister, Malik's closest ally in many deals. She had been away in Atlanta, supporting Malik's international ventures. She had been quiet in our family gatherings, a woman always at least an arm away from scandal. I had trusted her once, years ago. I had laughed with her at my father's table. The list also showed bank transfers to an address in Atlanta that matched the receiving family's private home. The pieces fitted together with a sick, sharp clarity. Layla, Malik's sister. I felt the world tilt. Someone in my family, someone I had known, had a hand in saving my baby and moving him away. Had she saved him to protect him? Had she betrayed him to hide him? Or had she taken him to control him? Before I could think, a sound came from the dark behind us, a scuff of a shoe on concrete. Emeka looked up, startled. I turned slowly. A silhouette stood at the edge of the bridge. A voice called into the night, smooth and low. Well, fancy meeting you here. Malik stepped out of the shadows like a king appearing at the wrong time. He was not alone. Two men flanked him, faces hard. My legs wanted to run. My tongue wanted to scream. But the words on the paper had already done what they had to do. I held my ground, clutching the Polaroid like a weapon. Malik smiled a slow, ugly smile. Trying to play detective, Precious? He said. You should have stayed dead. My phone buzzed in my pocket. An unknown number. I ignored it. My eyes were on him. Then Dinladi touched my arm. Don't make a sound, he mouthed. He had read the room. He knew power when it arrived. Malik's smile widened. He lifted the phone that had been buzzing in my pocket and flicked it on. It showed my name on the screen. You are brave, he said softly. Or stupid. Either way, tonight ends this game. As he stepped closer, the river sounded louder, and my heartbeat matched its pounding. Emeka swallowed, and in that blink, I understood the danger wasn't just about the child anymore. It was about everything. Family, lies, the web that had been pulling us apart. Malik's shadow fell over us, and the moon hid behind cloud. The creak of the bridge seemed louder than the engines that had once carried us through the sky. He reached into his pocket, and the screen of my phone lit up with a message. It was from an Atlanta number. The text was short and cold. We have him. Stay where you are. I read the words, and for the first time since the fall, a terror colder than the ocean moved through me. Someone else knew the child's location. Someone who could move faster than lawyers and bribes. Malik smiled like a man who had been expecting this answer all along. You found the Polaroid, he said. You followed the crumbs. How nostalgic. But you should have left well enough alone. The river rushed beneath us. The night air felt thin. I gripped the Polaroid harder. My fingers burned. Something inside me turned to stone. I had come too far to stop now. Then show me where he is, I said, my voice steady though my hands trembled. Tell me where my child lives. Malik laughed. It sounded like a blade being sharpened. You ask too much, Precious. But tomorrow, you will see why you should have stayed dead. He turned, his men closing ranks, and walked away into the night, leaving us under the bridge with a new, heavier fear. The unknown had a name, and the name was Atlanta. I watched him go, my body shaking with a new kind of resolve. If Atlanta held my child, then Atlanta would get a visit from a mother who refused to be silenced. Dinladi's face went white when he hung up. He says he has something, he whispered. He says he is ready to tell the truth. But he is here in Lagos. A meeting was set for midnight under the cover of the old bridge. I knew the spot where Baba Kunnel had first found me all those months ago. The river would swallow our sounds. The men would not likely be seen. I wrapped my scarf tight under the moon and met Dinladi at the bridge. A single man waited, slim, in a plain cap, his eyes tired. He introduced himself in a hushed voice as Emeka, a courier who had once moved documents for Malik's partners. He said he wanted to clear his conscience. He handed Dinladi an envelope. Inside were bank printouts, a small list of names, and my hand began to shake, the name of the woman who had signed the St. Agnes form. And beside that name was another, Layla Bamideel. My breath stopped. Layla, a name I had not heard aloud since childhood. My heart thudded like a drum. Layla was Malik's sister, Malik's closest ally in many deals. She had been away in Atlanta, supporting Malik's international ventures. She had been quiet in our family gatherings, a woman always at least an arm away from scandal. I had trusted her once, years ago. I had laughed with her at my father's table. The list also showed bank transfers to an address in Atlanta that matched the receiving family's private home. The pieces fitted together with a sick, sharp clarity. Layla, Malik's sister. I felt the world tilt. Someone in my family, someone I had known, had a hand in saving my baby and moving him away. Had she saved him to protect him? Had she betrayed him to hide him? Or had she taken him to control him? Before I could think, a sound came from the dark behind us, a scuff of a shoe on concrete. Emeka looked up, startled. I turned slowly. A silhouette stood at the edge of the bridge. A voice called into the night, smooth and low. Well, fancy meeting you here. Malik stepped out of the shadows like a king appearing at the wrong time. He was not alone. Two men flanked him, faces hard. My legs wanted to run. My tongue wanted to scream. But the words on the paper had already done what they had to do. I held my ground, clutching the Polaroid like a weapon. Malik smiled a slow, ugly smile. Try and play detective, Precious, he said. You should have stayed dead. My phone buzzed in my pocket, an unknown number. I ignored it. My eyes were on him. Then Dinladi touched my arm. Don't make a sound, he mouthed. He had read the room. He knew power when it arrived. Malik's smile widened. He lifted the phone that had been buzzing in my pocket and flicked it on. It showed my name on the screen. You are brave, he said softly. Or stupid. Either way, tonight ends this game. As he stepped closer, the river sounded louder, and my heartbeat matched its pounding. Emeka swallowed, and in that blink, I understood that danger wasn't just about the child anymore. It was about everything. Family, lies, the web that had been pulling us apart. Malik's shadow fell over us, and the moon hid behind cloud. The creak of the bridge seemed louder than the engines that had once carried us through the sky. He reached into his pocket, and the screen of my phone lit up with a message. It was from an Atlanta number. The text was short and cold. We have him. Stay where you are. I read the words, and for the first time since the fall, a terror colder than the ocean moved through me. Someone else knew the child's location. Someone who could move faster than lawyers and bribes. Malik smiled like a man who had been expecting this answer all along. You found the Polaroid, he said. You followed the crumbs. How nostalgic. But you should have left well enough alone. The river rushed beneath us. The night air felt thin. I gripped the Polaroid harder. My fingers burned. Something inside me turned to stone. I had come too far to stop now. Then show me where he is, I said, my voice steady though my hands trembled. Tell me where my child lives. Malik laughed. It sounded like a blade being sharpened. You ask too much, Precious. But tomorrow, you will see why you should have stayed dead. He turned, his men closing ranks, and walked away into the night, leaving us under the bridge with a new, heavier fear. The unknown had a name, and the name was Atlanta. I watched him go, my body shaking with a new kind of resolve. If Atlanta held my child, then Atlanta would get a visit from a mother who refused to be silenced. If someone you loved was taken and hidden across an ocean, would you cross borders to get them back? What would you do if you found out a family member was involved? Tell me where you're watching from and what you would do in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to Tales by Wealth. The morning after that meeting under the bridge, the air in Lagos carried the scent of smoke and rain, a warning of things to come. Malik's words echoed in my head. Tomorrow, you will see why you should have stayed dead. Those words weren't just a threat. They were a promise. By sunrise, the news channels were flooded with headlines. Breaking: Bamideel Empire faces international fraud allegations. Malik Bamideel denies involvement in offshore scandal. He had struck first. Before I could expose him, he'd painted himself as a victim, accusing me, the dead wife, of running a secret blackmail ring. He claimed I had been the one behind the leaks and that my ghost had planted fake evidence to ruin his business. And the worst part? People believed him. I sat in the small, safe house Dunladi had arranged, staring at the flickering screen. My heart pounded with rage. Malik was not only destroying the truth, he was rewriting history. But what he didn't know was that I had something he could never control, the truth about our child. Dunladi paced the room, phone pressed to his ear. "The contact in Atlanta is ready," he said. "We have confirmation that the adoption agency was a front. The lawyer there, Grace Johnson, has agreed to meet us." I looked at him, steady and determined. "Then we go to Atlanta." He frowned. "It won't be easy, precious. Malik will try to stop you before you ever get on that plane." "Let him try," I said. "He thinks I'm the same woman he pushed out of a helicopter. He's wrong." By nightfall, the plan was in motion. Using the documents from Tun's safe, Dunladi booked new passports under false names. Chica would stay behind in Lagos to feed misinformation, pretending she had fled to Benin Republic. As we packed, Baba Kunnel appeared at the door. The old fisherman's eyes were sad but proud. "Your father once told me," he said softly, "that courage is not the absence of fear. It's doing what must be done while you tremble." I smiled faintly. "Then I must be the bravest woman in Lagos." He chuckled and handed me a small wooden carving of a bird. "For protection," he said. "The sea may have tried to drown you, but the sky will carry you now." 2 days later, we landed in Atlanta. The air was cool, clean, and sharp, a far cry from the humid weight of Lagos. The skyline shimmered with glass towers and distant lights. But beneath the beauty, I could feel danger humming. Grace Johnson, the American lawyer, was waiting at the airport. She was a tall African-American woman with calm eyes and a voice that carried authority. "You must be Adiz," she said, using my alias. "We've been expecting you." We drove to her office downtown. Inside, the walls were lined with case files and photos of smiling children. Grace poured me tea, then handed me a folder. "We found something. Your child was placed with a couple, Mr. and Mrs. Carter, high donors to Malik's U.S. Charity Foundation." The words hit like thunder. Malik had moved our baby through his own organization, hiding the crime behind philanthropy. My voice cracked. "So the charity was just a cover?" Grace nodded. "A very expensive one. The Carters live in an estate north of the city. The boy is healthy. He's about 1 year old now." I pressed a hand to my mouth, fighting tears. "My son, he's alive." Dunladi smiled weakly. "Then our mission is clear." But Grace wasn't finished. "There's more. Malik's sister, Layla, visited the Carters 2 months ago. She signed a guardianship clause. If anything happens to the Carters, legal custody transfers to her." My stomach twisted. "So she is involved." Grace hesitated. "More than involved. Layla owns half of the charity foundation. She's the one funding Malik's operations in the U.S. She's the quiet power behind everything." That night, we stayed in a small motel near Peachtree Street. The neon sign outside flickered red through the window blinds. I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about my son, about the life he was living without me. Was he loved? Was he safe? Did he even know I existed? Around midnight, my phone buzzed. A message appeared from an unknown number. "Stop looking for what you can't keep." My blood ran cold. Someone knew I was here. I rushed to the window, heart pounding. A black SUV was parked across the street, engine idling, lights off. I couldn't see the driver, but I felt who had sent them. "Malik." I turned to Dunladi. "He's here." He looked out the window, face tense. "We have to move. Now." We packed quickly, leaving through the back exit. Grace had arranged a safe contact, an older Nigerian pastor who ran a community center for immigrants. His name was Reverend Jonah. He welcomed us with open arms and prayer, offering a quiet basement to hide in. "You'll find your child," he said, "but you must not rush. The devil likes impatient hearts." The next day, Grace called with news that made my hand shake. "The Carters are hosting a gala tomorrow night," she said. "A fundraiser for Malik's foundation. Layla will be there. So will your husband." Dunladi's eyes narrowed. "They're flaunting the very system they corrupted." Grace nodded. "It's the perfect opportunity. You'll need proof that the child they claim as theirs is yours. Photographs. DNA if possible. Once we have that, we can file an injunction and contact the authorities." I felt adrenaline surge through me. Then I'll go to the gala. Grace frowned. It's dangerous. I've already died once, I said. Danger doesn't scare me anymore. The following evening, the mansion glowed with gold light. Luxury cars lined the driveway, and guests in glittering gowns floated across the lawn. I wore a catering uniform Grace had arranged, blending in with the staff carrying champagne trays. My heart pounded so hard it felt like I could hear it echoing in the marble halls. Then I saw him. Malik, tall, proud, elegant in a black tuxedo, smiling for cameras. Beside him stood Layla, radiant in a silver dress, her hand resting lightly on his arm. They looked untouchable. And there, just a few steps away, was a small boy. Curly hair, brown skin, eyes that looked exactly like mine. My knees weakened. For a moment, the whole world blurred. That was him, my son. Layla knelt beside him, whispering something in his ear. He giggled, a soft, innocent sound that broke me inside. I wanted to run to him, to scoop him into my arms and never let go. But I couldn't. Not yet. Grace's words echoed in my head. One wrong move, and they'll make him disappear again. So I stayed in the shadows, watching, memorizing every detail. The way he smiled, the small scar on his chin, the gold bracelet around his tiny wrist engraved with one word, Bamadil. Halfway through the night, Malik took the stage to give a speech. Tonight, we raise funds for children who deserve second chances, he said smoothly. Because every child deserves love. The crowd applauded. Cameras flashed. Layla smiled proudly beside him. And in that moment, I made a silent vow. You took everything from me. But this time, Malik, I will take everything from you. I turned and slipped away toward the back hallway where the nanny had taken my son earlier. My hands shook as I reached for the phone Grace had given me. I whispered, it's time. Then Lottie's voice came softly through the line. We're ready. I pushed open the nursery door and froze. The crib was empty. Atlanta at night glittered like a trap, beautiful, bright, and deadly. As I stood in that empty nursery, the note trembling in my hands, the silence roared louder than thunder. The curtains swayed gently beside the open window, taunting me with the scent of Malik's cologne. He had taken my child again. My breath came in short, sharp bursts. The anger inside me was no longer fire. It was ice. Cold, controlled, dangerous. I turned to Dinladi, who had just entered the room. His face froze when he saw the empty crib. Where is he? He demanded. Gone, I whispered. They took him. Again. Dinladi's eyes darted to the note. He read it once, his jaw tightening. Layla, he said quietly. She's making her move. I clenched my fists. Then it's time we make ours. Within an hour, Grace had pulled every string she could. Her contact at the Atlanta Police Department confirmed that Malik's private jet had been moved from the local airstrip minutes before the gala ended. Where is it heading? I asked. Bahamas, Grace said grimly. No flight plan filed under his name, but the tail number matches his company's jet. Then that's where he's hiding my son. Grace looked at me, her eyes full of warning. Precious, listen to me. You can't storm into another country and snatch a child without legal authority. It'll be kidnapping in the eyes of the law. I turned to face her, my voice steady. He kidnapped him first. The only difference is that I'm his mother. Dinladi stepped forward. Grace, help us. Please. You've seen the evidence, the fake adoption, the forged documents. We can't wait for paperwork. Every hour gives Malik a head start. Grace hesitated, then exhaled. I know a way, she said. But it's risky. You'll need someone who can move off the record. That someone was Detective Marcus Lane, Grace's friend and former fiancé, now working in private investigations. He was tall, gruff, and looked like a man who didn't sleep much. He listened quietly as we explained everything. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. You're telling me your husband faked your death, stole your baby, forged international adoption papers, and now he's fleeing with the child to the Bahamas? Yes, I said. He whistled softly. Lady, your life's a movie. But I believe you. Will you help me? He gave a slow nod. I could get you there. But once you're on that island, it's on you. Malik's not the kind of man you arrest quietly. He'll have people watching. That's fine, I said. He won't see me coming. By the next night, we were on a small chartered plane. The hum of the engines blended with the sound of my heartbeat. The ocean below looked calm, but I knew how deceiving calm waters could be. Dunladi sat across from me, reviewing files. "We'll land just outside Nassau," he said. "Marcus has a contact who will help us locate the Villa Malik uses. Grace will alert the U.S. consulate once we have proof of the child's presence." I stared out the window, the reflection of my face merging with the stars. "He thinks I'm powerless," I whispered. "He thinks I'll beg." Dunladi's eyes softened. "And will you?" I shook my head slowly. "No, I'll make him beg." We touched down near midnight. Marcus met us with a black Jeep and no words. He drove through narrow roads lined with palm trees until we reached a secluded beachfront compound surrounded by white walls. "This is it," he said. "Malik's villa. Locals say a woman and a child arrived earlier today." My pulse quickened. Then they're inside. We watched from the shadows as guards patrolled the gate. Layla's voice drifted from the veranda, calm and sharp like glass. "Make sure the jet is ready by sunrise," she said to one of the men. "We leave for Morocco next. Malik wants no trace." Marcus glanced at me. "You're running out of time." I stepped forward. "Then I'll take it back." We waited until the lights inside dimmed. Marcus disabled the gate alarm, and Dunladi kept lookout. I slipped through the garden, every sound amplified by fear and determination. The air smelled of salt and jasmine. Through a large glass window, I saw him, my son, asleep on a bed beside a half-packed suitcase. His little chest rose and fell in steady rhythm. For a second, the whole world stopped. I pushed open the door quietly and crossed the room. My knees buckled as I knelt beside him, brushing my fingers against his small hand. Warm, real, mine. Tears filled my eyes. "Mommy's here," I whispered, but the moment was short-lived. A voice spoke from behind me, calm, cold, and unmistakable. "I was wondering when you'd show up." I turned slowly. Layla stood in the doorway, holding a gun. "Don't move," she said. I stood, shielding my son behind me. "You don't have to do this, Layla." She smirked. "Oh, precious. You still think this is about you?" I frowned. "You helped him steal my child?" "What?" Her eyes glinted. "Because your father left everything to your child. Not to Malik. Not to me. Not even to you. That boy is the key to all of it. The heir. Whoever controls him controls the empire." My stomach turned. "You're his aunt, Layla. You were supposed to protect him." She took a step closer, finger tied on the trigger. "And I am. From you." "From me?" She sneered. "You think you're fit to raise him? After all the chaos you caused?" "Malik built that empire while you hid like a scared little girl." I felt anger rise like a storm. "No. Malik destroyed everything my father built. He turned love into greed and family into enemies. You helped him." Layla's hand trembled slightly. "You don't understand, precious. I never wanted this life. I just wanted power enough to matter." "Then take the money," I said. "But give me my child." She hesitated. For a heartbeat, her face softened, but the sound of footsteps shattered the moment. Malik entered the room, calm and confident as ever. "I told you she couldn't resist," he said, walking toward me. "You always come running, precious, like a moth to a flame." I stepped back, clutching my son. "You've taken everything. Let me have him." Malik chuckled. "He's safer with me." "No," I said. "He's a hostage to you." He tilted his head. "Maybe, but a valuable one." Layla's voice wavered. "Malik, we should go." "The lawyer." "Quiet," he snapped, his temper breaking through the calm mask. "I'm tired of this game." He turned the gun on me. "Say goodbye, precious." The next moments blurred. A flash of light. A loud bang. Layla screamed. Malik staggered backward, clutching his shoulder. The gun fell to the floor. Marcus stood in the doorway, his own weapon raised. "It's over," he shouted. "Drop it, Malik." Dunladi rushed in, grabbing my arm. "Take the child and go." I scooped my son into my arms, his little body warm and trembling against mine. Tears streamed down my face as I whispered, "Hold on, baby. We're going home." Behind me, Malik's voice was a low growl. "You can't hide forever, precious. You'll never keep him." I turned at the door, looking him straight in the eye. "Watch me." Then I ran into the night, through the garden, down the beach, into the dark embrace of freedom. The waves crashed behind us like applause. The storm was finally breaking, but as I held my son close, I knew it wasn't over. Malik wasn't the kind of man who stopped fighting, and neither was I. The window was open, curtains fluttering in the breeze. A faint scent of Malik's cologne lingered in the air. My son was gone, and on the pillow lay a note written in neat handwriting. You can't save what was never yours. Layla. The room spun. I stumbled backward, clutching the note. My vision blurred as rage and grief collided inside me. They had taken him again, but this time they had made one fatal mistake. They had reminded me exactly why I was alive. The rain fell softly over Lagos that morning, as if the heavens themselves were waiting for justice. After months of running, hiding, and fighting, I was finally home. This time, I wasn't the same woman who left, broken, betrayed, and alone. I had come back with proof, purpose, and the one thing Malik never thought I'd have again: my child. The courtroom was packed. Cameras lined the back wall. Reporters whispered, pens clicking like insects. On one side sat Malik Bamadil, dressed in an expensive gray suit, his arm in a sling from the gunshot he'd earned in the Bahamas. Beside him, his lawyer, a man whose smile looked like a mask. And on the other side, me, precious Bamadil, holding my son close, my head high. Behind me sat Barrister Dinladi, Grace, who had flown in from Atlanta, and a few quiet faces from my father's old company who had finally found their courage. The judge entered, stern and heavy-eyed. This court will hear State versus Malik Bamadil. Case number 2074. Charges of fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder, and international child abduction. Gasps rippled through the room. Malik's jaw clenched, but his eyes, those cold, confident eyes, still tried to pierce me. He wanted to see fear, but fear had drowned the night he pushed me out of that helicopter. Grace stood first, her voice calm but strong. Your lordship, we will prove that the defendant not only stole billions from his late father-in-law's estate, but also attempted to murder his wife, faked her death, and illegally trafficked their newborn son to a foreign country under false adoption documents. Malik's lawyer shot up. Lies. My client was the victim of fraud by his own wife, who abandoned her child. And objection. Grace thundered. We have video, audio, and eyewitness testimony. The judge raised a hand. Objection sustained. Continue, counselor. Grace pressed play on a screen. The room filled with Malik's voice, recorded in Suite 909. That woman was never meant to live past her father. I made sure of that. But death has a way of rewarding those who deserve it. The words cut through the courtroom like a blade. People gasped. A few reporters stood to record every second. Malik's face turned pale. His lawyer tried to protest, but it was useless. The evidence was flooding in. Emails, forged bank statements, the Polaroid of the baby, hospital records, and transfer receipts to Layla's accounts. And then came the moment that sealed his fate. Grace brought forward a surprise witness, Layla. She walked in slowly, eyes red-rimmed, wrists still bruised from handcuffs. She couldn't meet my gaze at first. Mrs. Bamadil, Grace said softly, please tell the court your role in this crime. Layla's voice cracked. I helped my brother forge the papers, but I didn't know he planned to kill her. She looked at Malik, then at me. I swear, I saved the baby because I thought she was dead. I placed him abroad to keep him safe. The judge leaned forward. And when you realized she was alive? Tears rolled down her cheeks. He threatened to kill me too. I was afraid. I sat there, heart torn between hatred and pity. The sister who betrayed me was also another one of Malik's victims. Too weak to resist him, too afraid to tell the truth. Malik banged his fist on the table. You liar. You wanted the money as much as I did. The courtroom erupted. The judge slammed his gavel. Order. One more outburst, and you'll be removed from this court. Malik glared at me, his face twisted with rage. You think you've won, Precious? You think bringing me down will fix what I took from you? You'll always live with what I gave you, pain. I rose slowly, meeting his eyes with calm fire. You're wrong. You didn't give me pain. You gave me strength. And that strength is what ends you today. For the first time, he looked shaken, because he knew it was true. 2 hours later, after closing arguments, the judge returned with his verdict. The air was thick enough to cut. Having reviewed the overwhelming evidence and testimonies presented before this court, this bench finds the defendant, Malik Bamadil, guilty on all counts. The sound of the gavel hitting wood was like thunder. Malik's head dropped into his hands. Sentence: life imprisonment, without the possibility of parole. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted. Layla sobbed quietly into her palms. I didn't cheer. I didn't cry. I just breathed slow, steady, free. Outside the courthouse, the sky broke open with sunlight. Dunladi smiled faintly. It's over. I looked down at my son, sleeping in my arms. No, I said softly. It's just beginning. Grace asked gently, what will you do now? I smiled, feeling the breeze on my face. I'll rebuild what my father started. Only this time, it'll be honest. No greed, no secrets. Just legacy. We drove to the old family estate later that evening. It had been abandoned since my father's death, dusty, silent, forgotten. But when I stepped through the gates, memories flooded back. Laughter, my father's voice, the smell of his cologne. I walked to the garden where he used to pray and whispered, I kept your promise, Papa. The empire is safe, and your grandson is home. A gentle wind stirred the trees, and for a brief moment, I swore I heard his voice calm, proud, free. That night, as I tucked my son into bed, he stirred and looked up at me with sleepy eyes. Mama, he whispered. The word hit me like music. My throat tightened. Yes, baby. Mama's here. He smiled and drifted back to sleep. I sat beside him, watching his tiny chest rise and fall, and for the first time in a long time, peace wrapped around me like a blanket. But as I stared out the window, I knew one truth that would never change. Betrayal had broken me. Survival had remade me. And revenge had set me free. And that's how it all ended. Or maybe how it truly began. What would you have done if someone you loved betrayed you this deeply? Would you forgive or fight for justice like Precious did? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and tell me where you're watching from. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Tales by Wealth, where stories of pain, power, and redemption come alive. Because sometimes the strongest revenge is simply surviving and living well.